Welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. I'm John Sanders. I'm one of the co-founders of EntrePastors, and I'm delighted to have you joining us for this week's episode. On today's show, you're going to hear from a pastor by the name of Joseph Bennett. He's a friend of mine who has a really cool story of moving from the medical field years ago into full-time missionary work in foreign missions in Honduras. And more recently, in recent years, he's moved back to the United States and is serving now in pastoral ministry, and recently has launched a commercial cleaning business, and it's just getting started. It's kind of in its infancy, but you're going to hear Joseph's story of seeing an opportunity to bring some extra income into his family's life through the marketplace, and that's exactly the kind of story we celebrate at EntrePastors. So we're going to dive into that with Joseph and kind of hear a little bit more about his story. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Without any further ado, let's check out this conversation with our friend Joseph Bennett. Here we go. Well, Joseph, it is our pleasure to welcome you to the EntrePastors podcast, man. Welcome to the show.
Man, glad to be here.
Yeah. Hey, you and I have known each other for a few years. Tell the world how you and I got connected.
Yeah, so I guess we've known each other a couple years. We got connected through Dale Sellers with the 95 Network and helping churches get healthy and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a wild ride, man, just seeing what God's been doing and across the country.
Yeah, and here most recently this past fall, you were able to come out with Dale on the annual pheasant hunting trip to South Dakota. So we got to hang out in person again. And so really appreciate you, your heart for the Lord, your heart for others. And also you're a small business owner. So we're going to talk about all of that in our time together. So why don't we start with just a quick overview of kind of your life as it pertains to pastoral ministry. What has that journey looked like for you? Going into quote unquote professional vocational ministry. Kind of give us the high 30,000 foot view of that story.
Yeah. Well, guys, let me say again, man, thanks for asking me to jump on today. This is a pleasure and it's an honor. Glad to be here. But yeah, man, so I was called into ministry kind of at a young age. I'm 36 now and was called into ministry. And I would say probably, as a teenager, 17 years old, and really didn't know what all that looked like, but I knew, man, I love God and I love, the church. So started getting involved in student ministry and things like that. And eventually became a youth pastor part-time, and I say part-time, it was part-time pay, but, not full-time salary, so to speak. So, in student ministry, man, just making a ton of mistakes, green as everything, trying to figure it all out. And then I was working bivocationally. I have a background in radiology, so I was working in the medical field as being a youth pastor as well. And then in 2014, God opened the door for me to become full-time at a church as a student pastor. So I served there for about 5 years, started leading trips to Honduras with our church. I'd never been out of the country like that. And then God called our family actually to Honduras. And we went there and planted a church. And then we served there for 5 years. God called us back to the States. So now I'm in South Carolina. And I serve on staff with a church that now has 3 campuses. So we have our broadcast campus is in Seneca, and then another campus that we actually helped launch in Pendleton, South Carolina. Crazy thing is, it's at my home high school, like where I went to high school, where I graduated high school is where we meet on Sunday mornings there. So that's been wild. And we just in January launched a Espanol campus. So I got to have the opportunity to preach in Spanish to that group a couple of weeks ago. So, man, it's just exciting to see what God's doing. I love helping out with churches and, seeing churches get healthy and grow. So,
yeah, very cool, man. So you had, that's kind of an awesome story as far as you had some extensive or some background like in the medical field. So there was a season where you had a foot in the church world, in youth ministry, and then in the medical field, and you kind of got pulled to where the big money was. So you went more to youth ministry and away from the medical field. That's what a lot of people do when they're pursuing
Sure.
economic improvement. So take me into that just briefly. Like what was the decision about that? Because the reason I'm asking is this: one of the themes we deal with on this show is, you know, pastors who want to do better financially, but they feel this strong sense of calling to, you know, pastoral ministry or vocational ministry. So what was that like for you in that season that you were doing two things? And what was it about your story where you said, man, I'm going to really lean more into the church side of things, even though I've got this skill over here in the medical space?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved my career in the medical field. I mean, I was a doctor's assistant. You know, I'd specialized in an area. Um, you know, I'd been at the company for many years, so it was a great relationship. For me, I just kind of was like, man, maybe there's more. Maybe I need to dive in more to, you know, use all my gifts and talents that God's given me in the local church in a full time role. Um, you know, looking at that now, it's like, man, you know, I would say it's been an awesome journey, but that's not everybody's journey. You
Hmm.
know, there's some people that, you know, they're called to bivocational ministry their whole life, and that's awesome. And then, you know, as far as like a financial sense, you know, there in the medical field, you know, I was making pretty good money, and there's one thing about the medical field, there's job security for sure, because people
Yeah.
are always going to get sick, they're always going to get hurt. So
Yeah.
there was some job security there, but yeah, I just felt like for me, man, I needed to fully put my yes on the table and go into full time ministry at that juncture in my life. And you know, looking at that now, fast forward, you know, now being in full time ministry as a vocation at my church, I'm also realizing that, man, you know, I need to do better for my family. I want to do better for my family. And I also want to not just be stuck inside the walls of a church, but I want to go outside the church and interact in the community. So I have a small business as well.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack that story here shortly. I like that you're stressing that, you know, not everybody's story is the same, and that's true here with EntrePastors. We don't prescribe some one size fits all model that everybody should do this exact same thing. What we do here, though, is we do celebrate the fact that ministry is not just what happens inside the four walls of a church, you know, from behind a pulpit that you get a paycheck for. It's ministry is all over the place, and there's not
Yeah.
this sacred versus secular, you know, dichotomy where, well, this is sacred work, whereas this other stuff out here in the medical profession is just secular stuff. It's all ministry. So I don't want to present your story from a standpoint of like you made a mistake by leaving the medicine into and going into the church side of things. Because again, if God is telling you to take that step, I think it's a really good idea to obey what the Lord is showing you and lean into that. Um, and so I'm not even asking this from a standpoint of like, would you do it again the same way? Um, but let's look more for present tense and future focused. And I would ask this: I want to hear the story about the business that you're launching right now and that you're overseeing, and then really unpack like what is it that brought you to that place of saying I'm going to do both again. I'm going to go back to that place of being in, you know, pastoral ministry, but also out in the marketplace as a business owner. So let's get into that story.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a couple things. So, like, and I can back up even farther. Before my family and I moved to Honduras, and you know, we were serving there full time. When I was a full time student pastor, my my wife was, you know, a stay at home mom. We had two little kids. Both of our oldest kids, my daughter and my son, they're 14 months apart. So we were at a point where we got two little kids in diapers at the same time. I don't suggest doing that to anybody. It was just, you know, our hair was on fire.
Hmm.
And I had a guy call me and he said, "Hey man," he said, I know you got small kids. I know that you're full time at your church, but I got this opportunity." And it was not super glamorous, but he said, "Hey, I've got a couple of laundromats there in your area. Would you be willing to come on and kind of help me and run the cleaning business side of this?" And I was like, "Well, I know how to clean. I know how to run a mop, you know, and a broom. Let's go see." So I go and talk to him, and he said, we got one laundromat. I was like, all right, that's awesome. And it was to clean it every night, before they open. It only took like an hour. And then after I got talking to him, he's like, well, I got two other ones. And then another guy in the town, he found out what I was doing. He's like, well, I've got another one. So I ended up with four different laundromats, just kind of cleaning them, taking care of them. So that was kind of the start of this, like, hey, this is, you know, extra money for my family. This is, getting to meet people outside the church in a different realm. This is awesome. So fast forward now, I started when we moved back to the States. One of the differences we noticed is, man, things in the United States are more expensive than they were 5 years ago when we were, before we left. And my wife and I were like, what can we do to, you know, provide for ourselves? My wife, she's in school. So it's like, all right, well, I know how to clean. I know how to run a cleaning business. So I started doing residential. I would go and, clean people's houses. And then quickly, the coolest part about it is our church was launching in this community. And one of the things we were trying to do was meet with town officials and all of those things. And as I was in those meetings, I was kind of looking around the office, and I just overheard them talking about the cleanliness of this office in our town. And I just said, well, hey, would you guys ever be interested in looking at someone else than the company you're using right now? And they said, well, yeah, actually, what do you have in mind? And I said, well, I'm talking about myself. Could I put in a bid for this to clean this office? And they were like, sure. So I left that meeting and sent an email. I was like, hey, I'm serious. I put in a bid, and they were like, yeah. So that was the start of my cleaning business all over again back in the US.
I love that. So what's business look like today? Is like, where are you at in your business? Is this a sole proprietorship thing where you're the only guy out doing the work, and what's your vision for the business? Is it just to make enough, make a certain amount to kind of bring some margin and offset some expenses, or do you really have a vision to expand this into something bigger? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So currently it's like sole proprietor. I do things. I kind of look at it like this, that it's in a sense, cleaning that office is mindless work, and it's actually like an unplug for me from my ministry in a sense where, I go in a lot of times and I'll put in my, you know, AirPods, I'll listen to a book, I'll listen to a podcast. I act like it's like, all right, I get up early and I go work out, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and say Tuesday and Thursday, I go and clean the office for, an hour to an hour and a half. And it's just become part of my daily routine. I'm not stressed out about it. And it's been just an income that has helped supplement and create some margin in our family finances.
Mhm.
I've considered, maybe scaling it. I think everybody kind of thinks about those things, but I'm kind of content where I'm at right now.
Sure. Yeah, and there's nothing
Right. So right
that.
now it's just you then?
Yeah, just me. Yeah, I'll have. I got like a couple of people, if I'm sick or out of town, that'll jump in and help me. But yeah, other than that, it's just me, man.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to bring into the conversation. Like, as Americans, I think we just always go to the make it bigger, faster, stronger. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But not every business needs to do that. Not every business, like the whole, I think what I'm getting at is to remember the why behind what you're doing. And if the why is just, man, we could use an extra $2,000 a month to really move the needle on some things for us and our financial goals, that may be more than enough, and we don't need to pursue it any more than that. And also, there may be those that say, boy, I see the potential to build a team and to not really be the guy out doing the job, but to be the guy behind the scenes that's building the team and providing a job and resources for multiple people. But again, not everybody needs to carry that same story. It gets back to that. What is it that you need it to do for you, and what's God calling you to do? What opportunities for ministry have you seen? Earlier in the conversation, you said that, it's kind of nice sometimes to get outside the four walls of the church and meet people in that capacity. So can you think of any ways that you've been able to use that ministry or that business as a platform for ministry as you've been out in the marketplace with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just for one, like the fact of launching our church in that town, and the office I'm cleaning is the town hall.
Yeah.
So the person that cleans town hall, this is a building that has classified files and all kind of things like that. So there's a high level of trust of whoever, has access to that building, whoever they hand the keys to. So in that, we've created a level of trust there with me in my business, but then also like my church, when I go to the town officials and I say, hey, we want to partner with you in the community for this service project, or we would like to offer this for the town. I mean, they roll out the red carpet because they know there's a high level of trust already.
Mm.
One example of that is, we were getting ready to, launch the church, and we were trying to find out what the community was already doing. So the town has this big fall festival every year, and I found out that at the fall festival they have all these vendors and craft vendors, people that make things, and food vendors, and all of this. I mean, I think it's like 3,000 people come to this one event. But I realized quickly that there was not a lot of things for the kids at this event or for families. So we just came to them and said, hey, could we possibly, come and do some stuff for kids, put up an inflatable and all of these things. They were full on all of their vendors, but they completely rolled out the red carpet, and they gave us the spot in the middle of our town square to
Nice.
where we could just promote our church and everything. And I think part of that was because of even just my connection personally with them
For
through
sure.
my cleaning business.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we just think that when pastors are out in the marketplace, there's a whole new level of respect and relationships and open doors that come into the community when people see you as more than just a pastor. And it can be a strength the other way as well. There's times to pull out that pastor card and play that, and you'll get those opportunities as well. And then there's other times where, man, if you can pull out the business owner card and play that, that's more effective maybe than playing the pastor card, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what I was going to add to that is, like, in the same office as the town police department. So
Mm.
like those guys, I'm cleaning their offices and different things. So it's a service to them. I'm taking care of them. So when I come to them with my pastor hat on now, and I say, hey, we would like to do this, or could you help us with this? They see my work
Mm.
ethic as well. So they're ready and available to do whatever we need.
Yeah. Here's a question I want to poke around a bit with, and that is when you came back to the States, you came home from serving in Honduras and came back into more of that traditional pastoral role on staff at a church, and then started thinking about jumping back into, cleaning and having a business in addition to being a pastor. Like, were there any struggles, with the mindset around that, or do I have permission to do this, or what's my church going to think if they see me out doing this other thing? Like, what would you say to that? Because we see some of our people really struggle with that identity of, is it okay for me to be a pastor and a business owner?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of the mind game, because it's like, what do others think, right? Are they gonna, think I'm cheating on the church or my ministry? But what I would say is that if you marry the two of those really well, like my leadership at my church, a lot of them know this is what I do. And when I explain this is why I do it, I've used it as a platform that's actually helped our church. There's a ton of respect for that. And then when I explain this is how you know, if you're a good time manager, all of those things, so now I don't worry about that. I'm like, hey, I've proven myself because I'm organized and I'm dependable and reliable. I mean, I would say that you definitely need to make sure you're not letting balls drop in your ministry because you're trying to build your business if you're really called in your ministry.
Yeah. What are some of the big challenges that you have faced or are currently facing right now? Like if Les and I could wave a magic wand, which we have one, by the way. So if we can wave that and solve one problem for you, like what would that problem be? What's something you're struggling with in business right now?
Oh man, in business, really? I guess I mean, let's be honest, that cleaning an office building is not like the funnest thing in the world, right? So like if you could just wave them on and it's like I'd feel all happy and excited and motivated to go have fun and clean, like that'd be awesome. But I just know that the part of the reality is, man, hey, it's a grind. Like it really is, but there's a purpose behind it. I'm doing this because there's one side of it, it helps our church, but the other side is really is for my family.
Hmm.
I'm doing it to provide for my family. When I look at my kids, I want them to know their dad works hard because he cares.
Yeah. Can I sell a vision or offer up a vision for you? And it's really more for all of our listeners, but I'm gonna use you as a guinea pig to do this.
Yeah,
You,
let's
you
go.
I
open to
know where
that?
you're going with this.
All right. So
I was thinking the same thing.
well, what are you thinking, Les? I'll let you go
I'm
first.
thinking that he can do the fun part, which is out there on being the face of the company and meeting potential clients and, talking to them about, giving bids and getting to other businesses, and then let somebody else do the cleaning part that loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That thinks it's a blast, because there are people out there that do, maybe someone who has a financial need similar to what you know about, that
sure.
are willing and able to do that and would love it. And then maybe you're out there building relationships with some more small business owners. And that's the part that you like to do probably anyway, is the part being with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I would
Close?
say, yeah,
Is it
you're
close,
right on.
John?
You're right on target. I'm just going to add a few things to it. Yes, and so here's a couple other thoughts. I want to commend you, and I want our audience to hear me commending you, Joseph. Here's my frustration sometimes when we come alongside of pastors that we're trying to help them establish streams of revenue. And I want to be careful saying this because I celebrate a pastor who's figuring that out, who's kind of going through the process. But I often see pastors wanting to simply lean into the skills only that they've been doing as a pastor. And what I mean by that is they don't want to get their hands that dirty. So they're not willing to go do the boring old work of cleaning an office or washing something or building something or fixing something because they don't want to get their hands dirty. And I'm not saying that they're lazy. It's just they see themselves as I work with my mind. I write, I speak, I coach. I 100% agree with all that. But what I want to celebrate in your story is you are willing to go do the basic thing and solve a problem for someone and get paid for it. So, hey, pastor, if you're listening and you need more money, go clean someone's house or someone's office, go fix something, go build something. People are looking for that help right now, today. But Joseph, here's the next level. If you want, if you're cool with where it is, that's totally fine. But I heard you say it's a little bit boring. I don't know if I always want to be the guy on that end of the mop. My vision that I would cast for you would be, think about scaling that slightly to where you are no longer the guy that's out on the end of the mop. You're just the guy doing the fun part. Not only what Les said, building relationships with other business owners and whatnot, yes, but also imagine this, Joseph. What if once a month you just gathered your small team of 5, 6, 7 cleaners that are out every day doing work in your business, and the purpose of that meeting, you bring them into your home or restaurant or wherever you want to gather with them, and you're building them as people. You're pouring into them. You're using that pastor's heart to speak into the lives of your team. That you're giving them way more value than just a few dollars an hour job or whatever you're paying them at an hourly rate. Like, you're building into their life. And
Yeah.
that may not be a vision that ignites everybody's heart and soul. For me, with my handyman business, that's exactly where I am right now. I'm in that place of transitioning from like being the guy out doing all the work. And by the way, quick side note, the value of that is you now understand the cleaning business. Like,
Yeah,
some of the things that really are going to be helpful for building that business. But you don't always have to be the guy on the front lines. You can start to become the guy that's building the team of people that are on the front lines, and you own the business, and you
That can
shepherd.
be life changing for somebody. That
Yep.
could be a that
yeah,
could be a single mom that just needs that, just a little, just needs a break. It could be that that guy, that 30-year-old who didn't finish high school, working on his GED, and just trying to get over the hump. I mean, there's several ways that could have a huge impact, and people aren't lining up to invest in those folks.
Yeah.
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 So,
Man,
so go ahead
those
and
are all
respond to
great
that. What are you
points.
thinking, Joseph?
Yeah, yeah, those are all great points, and I would say those are all things that I've thought about. I don't know that I'm quite at the point where I want to press play on that, but I 100% agree. And I would say to any other pastor or leader listening that listen to you guys on that, because yes, absolutely, it's an opportunity for you to pour into their lives, and it could be, like you said, Les, the exact thing that, say, that single mom needs, or that guy who's just trying to get back on his feet. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I'm just not at the place currently in my business where I'm ready to do that.
Yep.
But I think that there's definitely value there. And I wanted to say one more thing about just businesses and even the opportunities that are out there for anybody that's listening. One of the things that was so hard for me as a missionary when we lived overseas in another country, a third world country, was just seeing that, man, there's truly not many options for people to make it, right? They're just all in survival mode. But man, we live in the greatest country in the world, where there's so many opportunities, and there's so many ways that you can make different streams of income in the United States. It's you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that I would have had this opportunity to make a bid on an office like this, but man, God opened the door, and
There
it's
you
been
go.
amazing for our family.
Are you at a place where you are hoping for more customers, or are you pretty tapped out to go, I've got all the customers I can handle? Or would it, if you had another company come to you and go, hey, we were looking for a cleaner, is that an exciting phone call for you to get, or is that an overwhelming phone call right now?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. The other day I was getting a haircut, and I just asked the guy, "Hey, who?" And I think that's it. It's those relationships. I said, "Hey,
Yep.
who cleans this building, and what does that look like when they come?" He starts explaining to me the routine of how the building's cleaned, and I'm thinking, man, this is a piece of cake. I'd like to bid on this job. My wife's like, you can't take any more. But it is. There's an opportunity. There's always like a next step that could be taken that could take things to the next level, for sure.
Yeah. And again, I want you to hear this, Joseph. This is coming just more for our listeners, not so much directed specifically at you. But if someone finds himself in that situation, you got some amazing options. And that is, basically, if you've defined, I've got my business to where I need it to be, and I'm not looking to grow a big old thing. It's just providing a little more income for me. Then the cool thing is you can start raising your prices. If the demand, outpaces your capacity, you can raise your price, and you're not going to get everybody. You're going to get people go, no, I can go find it cheaper, but that's fine. I'm not looking to get a ton of clients. I'm looking for a few who see the value in having a very trustworthy, highly professional person come in and do their work. And that's a way to grow it without growing more, with more clients. And then obviously the other option is, now we start looking at, we start thinking about building a team. But again, for some, that the cost of that, not financial cost, but just the time, the pressure, the responsibility is maybe more than they're willing to pay. And that's totally fine. So this isn't a judgment statement on you or anybody else. It's like, I'm not looking to grow a 7-figure, cleaning business. But I know people who run multi-7-figure cleaning businesses. So it can be done, but again, that's not the path for everybody that, forward. So you're in a good spot, man. Like, and again, we celebrate that. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. Like, sometimes we've got guys that have really big things going, and then this is also to be celebrated, a pastor who's leaning in without a bunch of guilt or drama into the marketplace to create some more income for their family. So I love it, man. I
Yeah,
celebrate what
yeah,
you're doing.
and I'll just say this too. Like, it's been kind of cool for me to be able to pour into. Like, I just moved into the executive pastor role at our church. So some of the guys, they come to me sometimes, and they're, struggling with, their families of, how can I create more income? And I think they hope I can just give them a raise. Well, I can't always do that, right? But what I'm able to do is kind of say, hey, have you ever thought about this? This is what I do. And then when I say that, it's like, okay, there's some credibility there.
Yeah.
We got one guy on our staff. He's he has gotten his farm to a place where he's organically certified, so he sells fruits and vegetables. That's his business. It's amazing.
Love it.
It's good.
Hook me up with him. I want to tell his story. So, and by the way, again, for anybody listening, we've got a community called Business Builders. It's a weekly group coaching call where we are walking beside pastors and ministry-minded people who are launching businesses and growing them. So like we love helping people think through that. And as I said earlier, we don't have a one size fits all, like everybody should do this one business. We'll kind of help you figure out how has God wired and gifted you, and let's figure out what you have at your disposal, and let's get you out there in the marketplace doing something, and we'll help you and celebrate you as you get that thing up and off the ground and start providing at a level that is better for your family. So anyway, man, anything else you want to add to our community? Otherwise I'm getting ready to wrap things up here, but any other last thoughts that you've got, Joseph, that you're dying to share? What were you hoping that I asked you that I forgot to ask you?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have an answer for that question particularly, but I would just say, man, again, that there's so many opportunities out there for people to create some extra income for their families. Get creative. I mean, there's just kind of one thought away from something you haven't thought that leads to the next thought, to where you can jump in and start creating some income for your family, whether it's on a small scale like I'm doing, or on an even larger scale. But we've got to take shots, and sometimes we miss, but if we never shoot, then we're never getting anywhere. So I just encourage anybody listening, hey, go out there and get after it, man. It's out there. There's opportunities. Think of things that people don't want to do. People don't want to. There's a lot of people, they don't want to clean.
Yep.
Well, if you can do that, then there's an opportunity to make money. I mean, people need people to walk their dogs. You can do that. There's all kind of opportunities.
Yep. Very well said. Joseph, if anybody wanted to reach out and ask you any specific questions, are you open to that? And what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a unicorn, man. I'm not on social media and stuff like that. I got off of social media a while ago, but yeah, they could reach out and shoot me an email, joseph.bennett1180@gmail.com.
Sounds good, man. We will put that in the show notes for this episode, and I'm grateful for you coming on and sharing with our community, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, man.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the EntrePastors podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the EntrePastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our EntrePastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own EntrePastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at EntrePastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.